Good morning. I'm J. Lenora Bressler, and welcome to the February 4th, 2019 edition of the Bible Delight in the Details. I want to talk about something with you today and tomorrow and probably the next day as well that I just shared with my Sunday school class yesterday. One of the most popular figures in all of the Bible is Joseph. And Joseph is really characterized and is important because of his characterization as a kind of precursor of Christ, particularly in the sense of someone who had a lot of things happen to him that he did not deserve. And yet God, through it all, worked all those things together for an ending in which he triumphed. Most people know the story of Joseph, how he was the favorite of his father Jacob, also known as Israel, wore the multicolored coat. The brothers were jealous, and he was sold into slavery, where a lot of other bad, unfortunate, and undeserved things happened to him. But ultimately, he wound up being second in command, second only to the Pharaoh himself, saved Israel. By doing that, also saved his own family, who later would come to Egypt asking for food, and then there would be a reunion and restoration of the family. It's a beautiful story, and those of us that see it and are listening to it from the other side of the cross, we can see the correlations to Jesus. But Joseph is not Jesus, and his father Jacob was not God, and that's something that I think is very interesting. At the beginning of the Joseph story, the story running up to why and how he got sold into slavery is found toward the end of Genesis, in Genesis chapter 37. And there's some details there that I want us to look at over the next couple days. You know, a lot of times I think we believe that if we get right with God, once we repent, once we become reconciled to the Lord, that everything's going to go very smoothly. And I think a lot of new Christians, they get very upset by when the reality hits them that Jesus did not promise smooth sailing. He promised that he would always be the captain of the boat and be with you. But those are two very different promises. And one of the things that I think also we, the best of us, so to speak, those who are very sincere and very wanting to be godly people, we also think that if you're following God, if you have true faith, that you're not going to have to suffer the consequences of choices and decisions and even habits that you've developed over a lifetime. And you might also think that all of those things are just magically going to go away, that your new relationship with God is going to instantly make you completely perfect. And Jacob is a great example of that. Now, we know that Jacob, in his younger years, was not a very good person. His very name meant usurper or grabber. And he's the one, you remember, who lied to his blind father and stole a blessing from his older brother, which made him have to be on the run, scared for his life for over 20 years. He did reconcile with God, and God did bless him. But it's interesting that even so, the consequences of what he had done still followed him. For example, isn't it poetic justice that his father-in-law would dupe him, would snare him into extra years of working for him by deceiving him about his wife. And then even later, after he was completely a man of God, and his boys, his 12 sons, were mostly grown, what happened? His sons betrayed him. His sons deceived him about Joseph being killed, rather than telling him that they'd sold him into slavery. Sometimes the consequences of what we've done are very long ranging, because those boys, they knew the stories of what their father had done, and they knew how he had acted, and they were just following right along. And so, sometimes we do suffer consequences, even though we may have changed, or we're trying to change. It's fascinating. Also, we just continue to make the same mistakes. Jacob here again is a prime example of that. The whole problem, the whole thing that caused him to want that blessing of Esau and the deception of his brother and all the heartache that caused, stemmed from the fact that in the family, his mother and father had favorites. You may remember his father had a favorite of his older brother. The mother favored him. You would think that Jacob, who had himself seen the terrible consequences of favoritism in the family, would have done something different. But no, he fell right into the same pattern, blatantly, frankly, putting his beloved Joseph in a terrible situation. And yet he could not apparently see the danger, or he could not stop himself. We know that he gave him the brightly colored coat, which obviously was a very tangible symbol of his preference for that son over the others. But when you read the details in the Genesis account, it was more than that. He was actually sending Joseph out to basically report back on the brothers, to tattle on them. And apparently Joseph did that. Could not see the danger. And then it spiraled out of control when Joseph started having dreams in which he was couched as the ruler over the entire family, including over the adults, the father himself. Even Jacob rebuked him on that. And yet, he still didn't see the terrible danger that he had put Joseph in. And now Joseph, who didn't seem to have a lot of emotional intelligence, at least at that point, was putting himself in. What did Jacob do? He sent him yet again out to check on those other boys. And boy, when he checked on them, they had some other ideas. So let us be careful to look at what we're doing and see that consequences occur even when you are well-meaning and you're godly, and be sure that we are not replicating problems that we have seen and should know better. I'm J. Lenora Bressler. Visit me on the next edition of The Bible. Delight in the details. Make it a great day.